yeah, let's go. Hey, 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 yo, come on. Hey, hey, hey.
Welcome, everybody, to the Fantastics Inside of Baseball podcast here on InsideOfBaseball.com and wherever you get your favorite podcasts, you can find us there. Skylar, how are we doing?
Doing great, man. My head looks especially big today. I think the haircut yesterday. I don't know.
We needed to block that window, so.
Yeah, right. It's not usually light here in Syracuse.
I know, right? Yeah, I know. We were just talking about that. We both live in the Northeast, and it felt like February 89th here up until about 2 days ago.
Yep, and now all of a sudden it is certainly baseball season. It's 70 and sunny.
It's gorgeous, and then we're seeing leaves. It's funny, yesterday, Marathon Monday, I'm driving around and I'm noticing the red buds on the trees, which means it's starting to bud. And then this morning, it's like the leaves are out. It's like 48 hours done. You know?
Hey, the trees know what's up. I mean, they're waiting. Okay, now.
Yep. Yeah. Just boom. I love that day. That's one of my favorite days of the spring because usually it feels like February 89th. And then we're driving around and all of a sudden we got green again.
It's when you know that the switch is flipped. And that seems to be how it always is now in the Northeast, where it's just garbage. It's awful. And then all of a sudden it's spring and it's time for nice weather.
All right, we're going to do EV again today. We know we did it last week with Brendan, but we're going a little bit different route. We're going to look at some guys who have made some gains. And what we're looking for here is some changes in the dynamics of players. And oftentimes that can be the result of a few different things. It can be educational. In other words, they've gone to a third party and they've changed their swing up or been coached differently and it's a little bit different mechanics in the swing change. It can mean an approach change. They're looking for pitchers in a certain part of the zone that they can drive and do better at it. Or it can be physical gains, right? There are a number of reasons that we can see gains in exit velocity. And we're looking today, and we were laughing because we talk about this every show, and you're all going to roll your eyes, but it's too early to talk about any of these stats, really. But what you can do is identify some of these players that are having gains and trying to figure out if they're real. And usually the question is why? Why is it different from what it was last year? Why is it different from what it has been over his career? And we try to figure out what the difference is and whether it's legitimate and if something we can lean into a little bit as we go forward.
Yeah, definitely the case. And, this is kind of an eclectic mix of guys that we've got on this list today. You got a few guys that were really questionable power guys that have made some changes either to their swing or to their level of effort in their swing, which I think is one of the things that you can measure both by the exit velocity, which we're looking at, but also by the contact rates. Where, if a really good contact hitter is all of a sudden turning into sort of an average contact hitter, but the exit velocity is up 4 or 5 miles an hour, you can probably bet that they're just swinging harder. And
that's an approach change, right?
Yeah. Right, exactly. And then there's also just aggression in terms of whether you're swinging more frequently, less frequently, waiting for your pitch, etc. And that's one of the first statistics to ever stabilize every season. We're getting close with that one where you could make some suppositions on, all right, this looks like a real approach change. Those are two of the things. And of course, you've got physical maturity of guys kind of in the 23 to 25 age category where you get that last little power bump where they go from kid strength to man strength, so to speak.
Yeah, and the one that I didn't mention that we should be talking about because it goes back to our Christian Yelich example, and when Christian Yelich was early in his career and he had his launch angle was really low, and he was a very good hitter, excellent contact, and sometimes they're asked to do different things or they take a different role. At the point with Christian Yelich early in his career, Giancarlo Stanton was with Miami, he was just going to be a contact hitter, put the ball in play, get on base, and then he took on a more productive role, and when he went to Milwaukee, he turned into an even more productive role. He needed to be a middle of the order type of producer, and we saw that he had power. His approach had just kind of masked it a little bit.
Oh, definitely. And that's one of the ways you can use exit velocity to try to target some guys that, if this guy just makes a little bit of an approach change, and that could be sudden in one off season, or it could be kind of gradual over 2 to 4 seasons, all of a sudden power is going to show up and people are going to say, oh, well, that Maikel Garcia, he never hits home runs. And all of a sudden you see the launch angle creeping up. 1 year he's going to hit 20 to 25 homers and people are going to like, whoa, where did that come from? Like, come on. It's been right in front of you the whole time.
He's there. He's one of the guys on your list here that I'm most interested in because I took him on a flyer because he was, you look on your roster for a couple of position eligible guys who have some versatility in positions, especially in daily transactions in head-to-head leagues. So I brought him in from that standpoint, but he's been a pleasant surprise to me going forward, and I want to know if that's real. So I'm looking forward. We'll get to him a little bit later in the list.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if it's real myself. I fooled myself last year into taking such huge shares of him, and he was, other than the steals, really pretty disappointing.
Yeah.
But I ended up with a bunch of him this year too, and a lot of times, that's one of those overreactions. Like in so many things in life, the pendulum is here, and then it just kind of completely swings to the direction. Everyone is so soured on Garcia after last year's just
Yeah.
he was spring darling and just disappointed so much that no one wanted to touch him. And I'm like, well, I mean, if I liked him last year, all the stuff's the same. He just didn't quite perform, but all the underlying is still there. Why would I not still like him? He's still really young. So
Yeah,
we'll
but
talk about him.
the price was a lot better this year, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. There was
Yeah.
no buzz in the spring.
And again, if you're depending on your format, and I'm talking about head-to-head daily transaction leagues, you need position versatility. The guys who have off days, guys who are sitting in the lineup, you need a guy on a limited reserve list that's going to be able to fill in several places, and he fits the bill.
Yeah, particularly in the format like we have in Tout Wars, where it's so pitching centric, and you want to load up on pitching with your reserves that you have one or two hitting reserves, and they need to be flexible as far as where you can plug and play.
All right, and one of the things that we didn't talk about that with exit velocity is that there is the traditional power curve, the traditional power production, power acclimation, and the first guy on the list that we're going to talk to, Gunnar Henderson, kind of fits this model that we talk about all the time. Little over 1,100 at bats, 1,200 at bats, 2 years of regular playing time. He gets more comfortable, and all of a sudden, some lift and some power starts to come into his game a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really had him as a 30 to 40 home run hitter when he was coming up through the minors. I think he was more of a 20 to 30 guy, and then all of a sudden, his second full season, 37 homers, 21 steals with a helping average last year. He was outstanding. Then this year, he got off to a pretty disappointing start. He was 4 for his first 30. I can attribute that, I think, to that intercostal injury that he had right at the end of February, barely into spring training.
Mm-hmm.
And then he basically missed 3 weeks out of the, 5 weeks of spring training.
Yep.
So clearly, I think some rust there. He's 9 for 34, 3 doubles, 1 triple, 2 homers since that really cold opening. I expect even better things from him. The exit velocity has gone from 92.8 on average to 97 this year already.
Yeah.
And, 62.5% hard hit rate. Yeah, I think the rust shows up. He's swinging and missing more this year. I don't really think he's swinging particularly harder by effort level. I mean, maybe the bat speed is up, but I don't think it's because it's a conscious change in things. And
a little more pull, but not a ton. And again, it's too early to dig into these numbers too deeply.
Well, I think so. The ground ball rate's up, but especially for somebody like him, he's only got 15 games in, 64 plate appearances. I'm just not super concerned here in any way whatsoever. If there's some way for you to acquire him at like a 15 or 20% discount from his owner, that if they're disenchanted, they think last year was a flash in the pan, whatever they think, I'm in. I mean, I'm all in. I think he's an outstanding young hitter. He's only 24, still getting better theoretically. I really like this guy. I think he's a great player.
Smaller sample sizes, but his exit velocity that's a significant jump. And I know, again, it's small numbers here, but it's kind of held up a little bit by the hard hit percentage, which has gone from, he was 53.3 over his career. He's up to 62.5%. And again, it's all small sample, but it's encouraging. The guy has legitimate power. And have you hit it on his max exit velocity? Because I don't have that on my dashboard.
It's right in the same range that it's been the last few years. He's been 113 to 114 max exit velo. He's already hit 113 and a third so far this year, which this is something that I think when you start looking at max exit velo, you need to be aware that is something that improves as the weather improves. So this early in the year, you tend to not see a lot of those really elite maximum exit velocities.
Yeah.
Just in the last week or so, you've started to see some of the 115, 116s come up. So I think Gunnar, this is where he is. His power level is not necessarily elite, but it is in the very good range, say, 65 to 70 on the scouting scale. And the best thing about him is that he can do that with a swinging strike rate that is really just kind of better than average. And his chase rate is better than average. He's got good speed. He's an extremely well-rounded bat. I really think the world of this kid.
But I don't want to diminish his power too much, because even he was 92.8 last year, 92 the year before. That's pretty damn good power. That's plus power. It's not super elite, but it's good.
I was talking more raw.
Yeah.
You know, his ability to access that raw power is as good as most people's.
Yeah. But I mean, this is the 97 miles an hour, 62.5% hard hit percentage. That's really encouraging stuff, especially with the new dimensions in Baltimore. That might be accounting for the pull. The pull and the ground ball rate might be the injury, and him warming up from the injury and just early season, ramp up.
I think the ground ball rate and the swinging strike thing, I think that's just some rust. It's already started to revert a little bit just over the last week or so. So I'm not at all concerned.
Yeah. Do you think exit velocity, and I haven't had a chance to look, I should have done it before the show. You think exit velocities are up in general? Because we're looking at a lot of players. And again, we did EV last week as well. And some of the early leaderboards on EV, some of the EV rates are really up. And you would think, and this is the first series at Fenway this week with the White Sox where people weren't wearing ski masks. So
yeah, right.
It's been a tough.
Full-on ninja gear with the Yankees in every series this year. Watching the Detroit series, and I swear Aaron Judge was ready to break into the Louvre or something.
It snowed during that Detroit series.
It did. It snowed here. It snowed here that same week. Like, it's miserable. And if you've ever been an athlete, and if you've ever tried to play baseball or some kind of contact sport in that weather, when it's 34 and just bitter and raw, you're so afraid to hit, because if you don't hit the barrel, your hands are ringing for like 15 minutes. It's just awful. You hit the wrong part of the glove in the outfield and your hand is just stinging for a couple innings. It's miserable to play in that.
Hitting, you need the quick twitch, which is hard to generate in cold weather.
It is.
When you're not warm.
Yep, definitely.
I was thinking about the show last night as I was watching the Yankees game, and Aaron Judge hit this slow roller into right field, and I goes, that's going to skew up his exit velocity. And that's something we have to pay attention to here in the early going, is that exit velocities can be skewed down, which is why last week we looked at the leaderboard, and this week we're looking at some guys who are showing some gains, because it's harder to skew gains, right? I mean, you're not going to get, you have to be more consistent to actually gain ground in exit velocity than you do to lose it.
100% true. I mean, you can hit a ball 20 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour, so 70 miles an hour less than your average. You are not hitting a ball 160 miles an hour. Right. The hardest one I've ever seen hit is in the low 120s. So you can only go 25 to 30 miles an hour above, but you can go 70 below. So just by the nature of dispersion of data, it's easier to have it artificially low early with small sample size.
Yeah, I almost looked up Judge's exit velocity just to see how
before and after. No, it's still pretty good.
Yeah, no, it's still pretty good. He's very good. Matt Olson is a guy who had a disappointing year last year after a 54 homer year in 2023, but quality of contact is up. That's encouraging, and that's very little is encouraging for the Braves right now.
Well, especially with the Strider news that came out, and people are worried that the Braves are papering over some kind of arm thing. That's not what I've heard. What I've heard is that this was probably minor enough that he would have just had his start push back or one start skipped, but they didn't want the slightest bit of deviation in his motion, any kind of compensation for a leg issue at all. So they just said, you know what, we're just going to put you on the IL. We're already struggling to start the season. We'll just try to line you up where you can come back around when Acuna comes back, and we can just be whole all at once and push forward from there.
That mechanical change is too difficult to tamper with. You just don't want to do it because it can lead to so many other issues.
It can. And, he is so critical to what they're doing, especially with Sale on the shelf, with Acuna on the shelf, with Lopez on the shelf. The Braves are really banged up right now. They're just trying to kind of stay afloat in a really a difficult division, but the bottom half of it, Washington and Miami, they've got some interesting young pieces, but they're not there.
Really? Chris Sale is hurt? Is that what you're telling me? So Matt Olson, though, 95.6 exit velocity over his career, 92.6. Again, a significant jump. Shows in the rest of his quality contact numbers as well.
It does. And, last year was so disappointing on many levels because he'd made exit velocity gains in the first 2 years in Atlanta, both from a raw standpoint and also from a Maximo standpoint. His max exit velocity, Matt Olson has as much raw power as anybody. He kills the ball. And last year, his max exit velo was 5 miles lower than it was the year before, kind of probably 3 or 4 miles lower than his average max exit velocity. So really just a super disappointing year. And this year in the early going, he's back up 2 miles an hour. So this would be, he's actually up 4 miles an hour. He was down 2 from 2023. Yep. This would be a new career high for him. Chase rate's also down almost 10%. It's under 20. So he's being extremely patient. And the swinging strike rate, it's helping him not swinging out of the zone as much. Swinging strike rate's down 1.75%. And, when you talk about things like daily or, when is a guy getting hot, he's hitting 7 straight with 3 homers. So he is carrying that offense right now as they start to come out of that massively cold stretch that they had. I'd expect to see the Braves, they're going to start picking it up even with the guys that they have before everybody comes back, and they should be roaring by later in May.
And if he can retain these numbers or even retain the 97.3 he had a couple of years ago in Atlanta when the dog days start to hit, you're going to see production out of him. He's got plenty of power for the AL East. I mean, for the NL East and certainly Atlanta.
Oh, no question about it. And, it's funny. First base was getting a little bit weak over the last handful of years.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden this year, there's like 7 guys that are popping back up into very strong underlying performance, along with a few prospects that are either up or coming up. So first base looks really strong moving forward.
In my house league, I ended up with Toglia and was really behind the curve in first base. And now I've got Torkelson and Soderstrom doing fine.
And great.
And there are guys in the pool that I'm looking at, and I don't need another first baseman. I can't play the 2 I got here right now. So
Exactly.
Yeah, it's funny the way the position changed. Now Nick Kurtz has come up, and it's it seems like first base is starting to ramp up again.
Well, and how long until we see Jack in Kansas City? I mean, he's going to be coming up, I bet, within a month or 2. So, yeah, exciting stuff.
Speaking of first base, Pete Alonso.
That's where I was going next. And I got to tell you, my wife is a big Mets fan. So I do watch a lot of the Yankees.
Oh, mixed marriage, huh?
Well, I'm not one of those Yankee fans. I root for the Mets plenty.
Oh, so it's not polarization.
Well, and I think this has always been the thing in New York.
Yeah.
Mets fans hate the Yankees. Yankees fans are ambivalent about the Mets.
Okay.
It's like a little brother thing,
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't mean to demean the Mets that way, but let's face facts. That's how it is. I love the Mets. I do root for them often. So we watch a lot of their games because, she wants to keep track of guys. And
okay, it occurred to me, I'm going to go deep in the woods here, but it occurred to me last night, and I'm glad you brought it up this way because I've never known what football team you root for. You root for the Cowboys, right?
Yes. You knew, but it's from years ago when we talked about it.
Yeah, because I was wondering about that whole Yankees. Is it Yankees-Giants pairing and Mets-Jets pairing?
That is typically how New Yorkers work. I got a few friends that have moved up here from the city. My one buddy, he was Otto the Orange, the mascot. Mm-hmm. He was one of the best shortstops I've ever seen. He was a soccer goalie too. He's like 5'3", but just a great, great dude from Long Island. And he is a big Mets, Jets, Isles fan because it lines up with hockey too. It's Mets, Jets, Isles, and it's Rangers, Yankees, and Giants.
Kind of like Boomer fans and Generation X fans.
I guess. I mean, New York has been this way for probably 2 generations. So I'm kind of unusual in that I'm a Yankees guy because my dad was a Yankees guy. He was a Giants guy, but he was never really a big football guy. So I got to like the Cowboys because my grandmother was a huge Eagles fan. So she would come up here. I must have told this story in the year before. Yep. She would come up and, I'm 6 years old and Christmas weekend, we're watching the Cowboys and the Eagles. And the Cowboys, I mean, first of all, you got the star to a little kid. That's kind of cool as a nice, clean, concise symbol on the helmet. But their quarterback was their punter. And I knew enough about, I've been in sports since I was like 3. So I knew enough about the game that was not only unusual, but I thought it was just really cool. And I was like, all right, that's going to be my team. Yep. And it's funny because my other 2 male cousins, the older one is a Cowboys fan. The younger one is an Eagles fan. My brother is an Eagles fan. He's younger than I am, and I'm a Cowboys fan. So we always have some good-natured banter back and forth. And we did with my grandmother, too, until she passed a handful of years ago.
Eagles fan in the house. That's unusual, too. Yeah.
Oh, God. Around here, there are a lot now because they've been good. So, they come out of the woodwork. Oh, I've always been an Eagles fan. Yeah, for the last, 5 years.
All right, Pete Alonso with the Mets. And again, another disappointing year last year. And it's interesting when we were talking about exit velocity, what I expected when I looked at, and again, it's challenging your perceptions. I expected Pete Alonso's exit velocity numbers to be outstanding. He does really well with less than outstanding exit velocity numbers. I mean, he's sub 90. He's a sub 90 guy, basically.
Pete Alonso is one of those guys, and he hits a lot of pop-ups, or he did until this year. A lot of pop-ups, a lot of those kind of really weak topped ground balls that skew your exit velocity low.
So when he misses big.
Exactly. So you look at his max exit velocities, and he has elite raw power. 118s back in his first 3 years, 116s the last 3 years. This is elite level stuff. I mean, he's one of the top 10 or 15 guys in terms of raw power in the majors, but really has struggled. And you know what I'm going to say here about being cynical, but that contract he signed this offseason, when things dragged out, and then he signed this like really kind of player friendly prove it kind of deal. It's a 1-year deal with a player option for next year that is at a much lower salary. So he's basically going to go back into FA if he has a good year after a 1-year return to the Mets. And I've watched a lot of Mets games this year. He is as locked in as I have ever seen him. Ground ball rate's down 10%, chase rate's down 5%, swing strike rate is down almost 2%, a 22% barrel rate. Exit velocity is massively higher than it's ever been in his career by 4.5 miles an hour. Like, he is just absolutely on fire. Every time he swings, I think the ball's going out right now.
I think the contract played a lot into it. I think the turmoil of the contract played a lot into last year. And I think you're right. He set himself up on a prove me type of contract here. And it's like, we call it cynical and we laugh about it, but these guys are doing this to make a living. So I don't blame them at all. Get the money.
No, I don't either. And you get probably one good contract in your career.
Yep.
One time where you have the leverage, where you still have some years of your prime, and you have to maximize. If you want to set up your family for generations, we all understand we're playing with like giant numbers here, but these guys get one chance. They're not going to be in this capacity past the age of 40. Most of us work a quarter century or so beyond that. So they need to get this stuff done when it's there to be done. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The one thing I was going to say that is not necessarily related to that specific thing, which I do think is a thing. He has continued to make contact gains.
Yeah.
All throughout his career. He just continually gets better and better about not swinging and missing. So, it's amazing that he has become, when he came up, I thought that it would be somewhat problematic, the contact rates. And at this point, he is very much a plus contact man.
No, his plate rates are great. That was what I was going to talk about. His plate rates have improved over the last 3 years. He's done very well, and he looks excellent this year. But the results in terms of the strikeout rate and the walk rate last year didn't show up, even though he made gains in his approach. This year, those gains are showing up in his walk rate and his strikeout rate.
They are, and I think pitchers were becoming a little less afraid of him. He had a zone percentage in 22 of 46%. Then 23 was 48.5%. Last year was almost 50%. Pitchers were starting to challenge him a bit.
Yep.
So now it's already starting to drop again. And if pitchers have watched any of his games lately, his zone percentage should be about 25. I don't want any part of Pete Alonso right now.
Yeah, you don't want any part of him at this point. But you have that combination of power, and I'm glad you talked me out of, or you educated me about the exit velocity, because I was surprised at the overall exit velocity. And I got to put max exit velocity on my dashboard, but I can't decide what I want to pull off.
That's the problem, is the screen's going to be so wide.
It won't fit. So
right.
I got to find some way to get it on there, because you're right. That does tell a difference in the story, because I was kind of taken aback by the sub 90 exit velocities, but you're exactly right. That's what it's about. It's about when he misses, it's a top ground ball or it's a pop-up.
Yeah. I mean, his misses on average while still hitting the ball are poor.
Yeah.
Compared to a lot of guys.
So we're looking for a rebound year at this point, and we can put it on the contract here. I know it sounds cynical, but I mean, it just helps a player focus too, because this is a huge year for him at 30 years old. The next contract's going to be the big one.
Exactly. And if he doesn't hit 40 this year, I will assume that he got hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big thing. Just stay healthy. But he's got a good track record of staying healthy. He's been 550 at bats for 4 straight years before this, and 5 out of 6 years before that. So he's relatively healthy. He's at a good position to stay healthy. So we're not factoring in health right now. Just with anybody, it's a factor.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's always that possibility. But I mean, for me, for Pete Alonso, I would bet that he will set a career high in homers, which, by the way, was his rookie season. He had 53.
You're going for a career? Are you going over 53?
I'm going over 53 for Pete Alonso this year.
Oh, I like it. How
Hey,
many?
You got to be bold.
How many homers for Eugenio Suárez? He has 6 already.
Yeah, he has 6. He had 5 of them in the first 4 games of the season. So you tell me.
Yeah.
I think he'll be close to 30 again. But the thing with Suárez, and this is why I really wanted to pump the brakes the first week of the season when everybody was talking about him. Oh my God, he's going to have a career year at age 33. No, he's not. I mean, maybe, but no, probably not. Because Eugenio Suárez, career first half splits 235, 323, 428. Second half, 261, 339, 491.
Yep.
He is a massively, very much second half player. He always has been, and it's been exacerbated the last 2 or 3 seasons. So my thought was, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, he had a huge first week. If he has a big first half, he could hit 40 again for the first time since 2019. But the thing with Suárez, always has kind of an average exit velo. This is the first year that it looks like it might be really very much better than average. But the problem with Suárez is the same problem that we've seen for many, many years. He started his career as probably an above average contact bat and didn't chase much. And then he had the one big home run season where I think he hit 30 in 2018. And then all of a sudden, you see much higher swing strike rates, lower contact rates. He's sub 70 a lot of the time now. And he chases a little bit more. This year, quite a bit more. But he still hasn't gotten 30. He's pretty disciplined at the plate. But, man, he swings. Early in his career, he wasn't really going for homers. And now that's all he goes for.
All right, so let's look at the pull percentages up until that year where he hit 49 in 2019. So he hit in 2018, he hit 34. And then in his head, he got to be a power hitter. His ground ball rates up to that point were 40%, 39%, 42%, 42%. Jumped immediately to 52, 54. I'm sorry, did I say pull rates? Pull rates. 52, 54, 47, 46, 46, 51. Pulling the ball more. The fly ball rate, the ground ball rate again was 40. 38, 38, 38, and then just dumped down to 34, 34, 33, 32. Change in approach. In his mind, he wanted to hit home runs. That's what he decided to do. And it cost him his approach. Yeah.
But he did that and then went to one of the worst home run parks in the majors and continued to try to do that. Yep. So those 2 years in Seattle, really, the performance cratered because that is simply not a great park for that style of hitting. Cal Raleigh can get away with it because he's got quite a bit of raw power.
And we call it a luck stat, but in Cincinnati, his home run and fly ball ratios were 23, 29, 24. In Seattle was 19, 19, and 12, or 19 and 12.
Different climate, different park dimensions. You know, I swear, some of these guys don't even pay attention to this stuff. They're like, oh, yeah, Seattle, that seems nice. I mean, just look at what the park is going to do to you, the way that you hit. It was a terrible fit for him.
So we've got fly ball rates of 46%, pull rates of 48%. So he's still in that role. That's why he's hitting 152 probably, by the way, too.
That is part of it. He does. He's had quite a bit of bad luck so far. Yeah. But he's been in such a slump. 1 home run in the last 19 games. He's probably going to hit 30. He's probably going to have a slightly below average batting average. He's a perfectly fine player, but do not pay for that early season home run barrage. He's the same guy that we know, and he's exiting his prime.
But he's still going to collect around 30 home runs probably, right?
I would expect so.
Yeah.
Because that's all he's trying to do.
Yep. So this is just early season, and that might be a situation where we're skewed up a little bit.
I think so. Because that first week, 5 homers in 4 games, that is a hot start.
Yep. Now let's go to Maikel Garcia.
Yes. My favorite.
In this right now. I'm very interested in your take on him right now.
Yeah, I'm guessing as much as anybody is because this guy, when you look at the underlying numbers, he looks like he could be a star. Fantastic plate discipline, excellent contact ability, exit velocities. Well, the raw power, the max exit velocities are just kind of average, but he gets to it quite a bit. The average exit velocities are well above average, and he has excellent speed. Multiple position eligibility, great line drive rates, and the launch angle is increasing steadily. Like all this stuff looks great. So why do we just not see the performance? Well, last year was just a weird year for him. He had quite a bit of bad luck, but also just, the exit velocity is going up, but he doesn't pull the ball much.
Right.
And he doesn't have elite power by any stretch. He has kind of average to slightly above power, maybe. And this year he's been caught stealing 4 times out of 7. So you're not getting that part of it, which you got last year. but the hitting looks better so far. So, the thing we need to remember with Maikel Garcia is the underlying skill set looks very good. He's still just 25, so we haven't even hit prime yet. All things come together perfectly, he's going to be a 5-category guy. But even if they don't, there's enough of a skill set there that I don't think we will get another year like last year. It was just one of those things where there was a lot of expectation that he would hit.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't, and he was pressing. So they're moving him up to the leadoff spot. They're moving him down to the bottom of the order, just all over the place. And he's a young player. So I think that there's intangibles here that we don't know so often, but I will bank on the skill set 10 times out of 10. And the skill set is there for this guy to be a good player. I'm
And by
sticking
the
with
way, he fits the model around 1,100 at bats, 2 years of regular playing time. He's about at that age, 24 into the age 25 season. He's about right. I think Kansas City, I think the ballpark has a lot to do with it right now. I think his role with the ball team and the way that the makeup of that offense, I think he's got to see himself as more of a power hitter before he starts to tap into that power a little bit more. And he's got legitimate power. And combined with the plate rates, like he said, he's got a great skill set. There ought to be something here. You look at his launch angle. I love the launch angle gains this year at 9. He was at 6.1 and 6.4 the last 4 years. It's up to 9. I'd like to see a little bit more of that. His home run and fly ball rate tells you all why he's not tapping into that power. He had 4.1%, 4.8% last year, 9.1 this year. That's still a little bit low. I think the ballpark and the role he plays in that offense, which is not a power-based offense. Is that fair to say? It's not the way they play the game.
I think it's very fair to say, yes.
Yeah. So I think they're not asking him to be that type of hitter, and he's got to fit within this. He's got to fit within this lineup, and he's got to fit within that ballpark. So I think it's going to continue to be suppressed, but I think we're going to see more of it. I think, yes, prices will never be lower on Maikel Garcia, certainly not at the beginning of the season.
Yeah,
But
I think so for sure. And the interesting thing with Kansas City is, you have a lot of teams out there. I'd say 80% of teams out there have so many potential outfield options. The Royals don't, at least not guys that could be impact bats. And the problem is that you've got Caglianone coming up whenever, sometime soon, and that's going to give them kind of an infield log jam. So I kind of wouldn't be surprised to see Garcia start to transition to the outfield at some point.
I think so too. And I think it's going to be necessary for him to settle down into a position for him to tap into this power a little bit, because those guys who generally are versatile, especially infield, outfield type of situations, spend so much time on the defense. They don't generally fit that role of being a power producer or a middle of the order type of producer. If I think you get him in the outfield and just let him hit, he can start to take on that role a little bit.
I think so. I do think you're going to see a guy that puts up more kind of doubles and triples than straight home runs, because he does not hit a lot of pulled fly balls. It's just not what he does.
Well,
So
and again, Kansas City and that offense in that ballpark, it's going to lend itself to that.
Well, definitely triples.
Yeah,
he's got speed. So yeah, I think he's going to be more of kind of a well-rounded peak at 20 home run kind of a guy than a true power bat. But the rest of the skill set is so good that's perfectly satisfactory for my liking.
But if he can reach 20, he's a 20-30 guy potentially. And I know there's been some speed issues this year, but
even if he's just 20-20 with a good batting average, a good on base percentage. Yeah, I think he's in positional versatility.
20-20 is like yay. 20-30 is like, oh wow, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and for a guy that was an afterthought in drafts this year.
I think his ADP is going to be a lot higher next year. Is basically what we're saying, right?
I'm willing to bet it. I'm willing to bet.
It's going to be, and as long as he can keep that position versatility, he's going to be a valuable guy.
Yeah, I think so.
I love talking Yankees with you too. Let's talk about Ben Rice.
Oh, let's talk about Ben Rice.
Yeah,
because I've had so many people tell me, oh, it's just a flash in the pan. They've had guys do this before, Kevin Moss, Shane Spencer, blah, blah, blah. No, you have not had a guy like this, okay? Ben Rice is a legitimate big league hitter. I will argue this until I'm blue in the face. This kid has very good swinging strike rates and contact rates. He's at least average, but I would say above average in that respect, especially when it comes to plate disciplines. Former catcher, really knows the strike zone well. Chase rates down around 20%. Walk rates consistently well above 10% throughout his minor league career. And even during the struggles last year, it was an 11% walk rate. So this dude will get on base. He has non-zero speed for a former catcher and a guy that kind of looks like a big lumbering first baseman. I would call his speed average minus 45 on the scouting scale, we'll say. He will steal 5 to 10 bases. And let me tell you, if you can get 10 steals from your first baseman, that's going to be about the second most in the league probably. So it's not an insignificant kind of a thing.
Yep.
But we're here because of the power. And even last year with the struggles, 90-mile-an-hour average exit velocity as a rookie, max 111. So both above average numbers with a barrel rate of 15.5%. Impressive, right?
Yep.
Expected batting average 237, slugging 462. He was 113 points underneath that in actual slugging. So really kind of unfortunate, particularly for a left-handed guy that will hit the ball in the air and pull it in Yankee Stadium.
Yep.
It was weird for him to really just not show a ton of power last year.
That's a big delta between slugging, actual slugging, and expected slugging.
Yeah, so this year he's slugging 614. So you think, oh, he's probably getting lucky, right? No, you're wrong.
No.
689 is the expected slugging this year. Barrel rate over 25%. Hard hit rate 65%. Exit velo 95.5. Max 113. And this kid is still only 26 years old. So we're just getting into the prime now. I'm really excited about Ben Rice. I think the Yankees have found their first baseman. You've got the number 2 offense in baseball at this point. I think it's clear they're a top 10 offense in general. They've gotten off to a hot start. But he's going to bat leadoff against right-handers at the top of that lineup with his plate discipline, with Aaron Judge batting right behind him. This kid could score 1,000 runs if he plays every day.
And he looks mature, right? And you think he's mature, and his whole profile looks mature. Only 220 major league at bats at this point. And yet he's still controlling the strike zone as well as he has, making that quality of contact. And you're right. When he gets in the leadoff position at Yankee Stadium in June and July, in August,
I'm feeling excited about it myself.
Yeah, that's a big hit. So this all looks legitimate. We don't. His max exit velocity was 113.
113.2 already this year. So.
Yeah, and again, the quality of contact, the hard hit percentage is 65%, the barrel percentage is 25.5%. I mean, it's just exceptional, especially when you're only swinging strike is 10.1%. He's doing exceptionally well. Contact rate is 74%, which, by the way, will regress a little bit. That's going to go up with that quality of contact. It's just there's so much potential here, especially in that ballpark.
I love it. I absolutely love the Yankees for many years, and I've been very critical of them. They were really just not very good against right-handed pitching. All of their best bats were right-handed, and they kept picking up more right-handed bats. And like, what are you guys doing?
I know.
So now, all of a sudden, you've got a team with Dominguez, much better left-handed hitter than right-handed hitter. Ben Rice, really strong left-handed hitter. You got rid of Jose Trevino. You got Austin Wells behind the plate. He's maybe not as good as some people think, but certainly against right-handed pitching, he's a dangerous bat at the bottom of the order. So, I think all of a sudden the Yanks have transformed their offense to being much more balanced. And then, of course, you have Aaron Judge, who kind of just is your trump card for everything.
It's unbelievable. He's just so much fun to watch.
He doesn't need to hit homers. I haven't looked at his stat cat page yet this year. It strikes me that he is pulling the ball a lot more than I've seen in the past, and hitting more line drives and fewer majestic blasts, as John Sterling would say.
Well, that might just be the way he's adjusting to how they're approaching him.
It could very well be, or he also has more confidence in the offense as a whole behind him to get him in. He doesn't feel like he has to drive himself in all the time. And by the way, he's not on the list, but I do want to mention about Jason Dominguez.
Yep.
Super young kid, still very raw. I was probably a little too high on him this year. Maybe we'll see. I mean, we'll see once it gets warm. But he hit one.
I love his physicality. I just love his physicality.
He hit one almost to the back of the bleachers the other night.
Yep.
He struck out the first couple times and then hit one almost to the back of the bleachers. And it wasn't even like he didn't get it all, I don't think. And he hit it 445 feet. And I was like,
he's like Soto 2.0. I hate to put him in that category at this point yet, because obviously he hasn't accomplished at that level. But his physicality, the way he swings, and I just love his total athleticism. He just fits. He's a total prototypical ball player.
it reminds me a little of Raul Mondesi, actually.
Raul Mondesi, yeah.
It's kind of built like a square.
Yeah.
But a fast square.
Athletic with it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like Mondesi wasn't a lumbering guy, but it looked like he was lumbering, but just actually moving along.
Yeah, no, but he was
more like a football player, really.
Built of concrete is what he was.
Oh yeah, he's only 22. He's got some maturing to do too.
While poking around the Yankees lineup, Trent Grisham off to a good start.
Oh my God, Trent Grisham! I love the acquisition. he's an excellent defensive player. He's made some brilliant catches already. And against right-handed pitching, he's a pretty dangerous hitter. He's got quite a bit of pop, understands the strike zone really well. Sure, he'll swing and miss, but good speed, good power, good plate discipline, and a good defensive center fielder. I am down with that. If he's your fourth outfielder, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and is that basically the role he's going to play? Is it going to be a platoon type of thing, or just they're going to try to find at bats for him?
He's been hot, so they're trying to find at bats for him every way they can. And the problem is that it would be natural to kind of move him in with Dominguez quite a bit, but they both can't hit left-handed pitching. Like Dominguez can't hit. He should not be a switch hitter, I don't think. He had one nice game-winning 3-run double against the lefty, but the swing was so ugly that, and they showed this replay, I don't know how many times, he swung so ridiculously that his batting helmet covered his head. So he had no idea. He was looking out the ear hole of the helmet. He had no idea where the ball went. He lined it right over third. He's like, I knew it was somewhere okay. I was just going to run, and the crowd started screaming, so I just kept running.
It's interesting how it gets to this point where he is struggling so much against left-handed pitching, and maybe shouldn't be a switch hitter, because I had exactly the same thought. I'm glad you brought that up. But you get to that point in his development where they would have come to that conclusion before this, you would have thought. In other words, you would have thought that they would have, if it was going to be a matter of he just can't hit right-handed, then fine, not let him hit right-handed.
Yeah,
but
you would think
he's got this power, and they still let him hit right-handed.
Well, I mean, look at what the Athletics did with Nick Kurtz yesterday. Like, they bring him up, and Patrick Corbin's starting, so we'll just sit him against the lefty. Like, these teams are so afraid of lefty on lefty, and yes, there are plenty of players that really just cannot. Depending on how your stance is and what you're trying to do, they can't hit left-handed pitching, especially the sidearmers. They just come from behind them and they can't see the ball, and et cetera, et cetera. Fine. Okay, I get it. But it shouldn't be this like, oh my God, we can't have a lefty face a lefty thing, because there are plenty of left-handers that can hit left-handed pitching.
It's almost like with Nick Kurtz, they're creating it as opposed to reacting to it.
Having the guy come up and get acclimated, like Patrick Corbin's the most frightening pitcher in the world with his 90-mile-an-hour fastball. Come on now.
That's the thing. That's when I saw the call up and I saw who was starting. I go, he'll play, even at the same side, because Patrick Corbin is not exactly intimidating.
I knew he wasn't going to play, and I saw Clay Link actually picked him up this week. And when you pick up a guy in Tout Wars, you have to put him in your lineup for the week. And I was like, oh, good. He's only going to get 4 or 5 games out of him, so that's fine.
That'll all work. Jonah Heim, another big jump in exit velocity. His exit velocity has been pretty average to good, but this year we've seen a big jump. This looks like a change.
It does. I mean, he's got the only problem here where I think maybe not, because it's less than 50 at bats. We're only at 49 at bats, but the swing strike rate jumping up and the exit velocity jumping up for a guy that historically had average exit velocity and pretty average to maybe even a little better than average contact rates. It does speak to a potential change in, we'll say, violence in the swing. Mm-hmm. And I like Heim. I think, that the year that he played a couple of years ago, where he played 130 games, had 18 homers with a 258 average, draws some walks, had 95 RBIs. That's pretty good for a catcher. And he's a fantastic defensive catcher.
Yep.
So I like Heim. I think in 2 catcher formats, he absolutely should be rostered. 1 catcher formats, probably not still, but he's close.
So maybe it's just accepting a role. It's like, we're not looking for you to hit 250. Go out and just hit the ball hard somewhere, see what you can do.
Well, and they got a nice caddy for him this time in Higashioka. Like, Higashioka is miscast as a starter, but you want to throw him in there against lefties. He'll give you some pop. He'll hit 10 to 15 homers with a low batting average, solid behind the plate. Like, it's a good situation for Heim where it's not a straight job share like I think he had most of last year. He is the primary. So maybe it's just more comfortable again.
And if we're looking at, I was looking at it as possibly an approach change, but the pull rate is not up. The ground ball rate is down, but the fly ball rate is not up. And what that indicates to me, without looking, is more line drives, which is where this quality of contact jump has come from.
No, without question. And he's never going to be a super hard hit guy. I mean, his raw power, it crests at average. I'm not sure that it's it might even be average minus. But, he's off to a hot start. He does have average power. Texas, the ball carries pretty decently. he's just kind of an average guy across the board. Even as far as catcher speed go, he's average. So I think that, he's perfectly fine as a second catcher. I'm happy to have him.
All right, Corbin Carroll is the next guy on the list, and he's been a strange player at this point. And I guess we can conclude that last year was the aberration, or the first half of last year was the aberration.
Right. I think that it looks like that's factual at this point.
Yeah.
I also don't really think that he's going to be a 50 steal guy. I think that he's more concerned, even as a leadoff guy, I think he's more concerned with get on base, provide some power, set the table, drive guys in when they're available. But his rookie season, well, was it really his rookie season? His first full season in 23, he did post an exit velocity above average. And I think people were concerned whether he could do that or not when he was coming up through the system. Turns out, max exit velocity, he was up at 114. This year, he's already hit a ball almost 116. So there's clearly some strength gains being made here. Mm-hmm. And he's only 24. So you would expect that at some point. I think this is the point. But also, when you look at what's happening with his approach this year, his contact rate is down significantly, but you've got massive increase in chase rate, almost a 10% bump in swing percentage. So he's just being tremendously more aggressive. Swing strike rate is almost doubled. So he is swinging hard, and that's giving you these exit velocities that are, frankly, better than I ever thought that he would put up. He's at 93 on average, and I just didn't think we'd see that from him ever.
Yeah, because he's physically not huge. He's 5'10", 165, if that's it. And he's all 165. I think he's
180.
180, yeah.
180.
Yeah. So this is an approach change. So it's kind of a reach for power. Maybe his physicality has changed a little bit. Maybe he's just bulking up, a little pro conditioning. Maybe he's just accepting a new role. And he's not going to be a 50 stolen base guy anymore. I don't think either. I don't think that's what he wants to be.
No, I don't either. But I think he's still a 30 to 35 steal guy, which is plenty fine if he's going to hit 25 to 30 homers, which he looks easily on pace for the way that he is playing. This aggression, this is a big change for a guy that really was not a chase guy at all, really understood the strike zone well, was playing for contact, and now all of a sudden he's trying to jack the ball. And it's nice to see that some of these guys have that in their quiver, and he's such a good contact hitter that these massive aggression changes have only made him like a little below average in terms of contact, which is perfectly acceptable in today's game.
Did you mention 30 homers? Is that what I heard in there? 30-30 guy.
I'll go on a limb and say, I think it's going to be a 30-30 guy this year.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play a little caution with that, because what I want to see is this has been an approach change for Carroll in terms of how he's approaching his at-bats, being a little bit more aggressive. At a certain point, the league's going to make an adjustment to that and try to figure that out. And there's going to be a little game of adjustments before we get to June and July.
There will, but he's batting leadoff every day. He's got a pretty excellent lineup behind him. And where's Arizona in runs scored? Fourth.
Yeah.
Actually, they're third in average runs scored. So I expect that to be a top 10 offense all year long. You don't even have Ketel Marte right now. Yep. So, I like that Arizona team. I like that offense. Ballpark is conducive to all kinds of bounces off that goofy turf and stuff in the cavern that they play in.
Yep.
I really think that he is going to have a fantastic season. And just at age 24, there's the arrow's still pointing up here for me.
Well, geez, that's a hot take, 30 homers. That would be something, 30-30.
I'm feeling aggressive today, like Corbin Carroll.
But that's kind of what we looked at initially for him. When all the prospect hype was, I don't know if it was 30-20, but it was high 20s, 40. High 20s, 40, right.
Yeah.
We were expecting that. So I'll take a 30-30. That'll be fine.
Well, and what did we get from him in the first season? He got 25-50, so that's something. And even last year, he was disappointing, and it was 20-30. So, I think you're probably looking at 30-30 this year, as far as I can tell.
That would be wild. That would be absolutely wild. Because, again, at that size, and we expected him to have some pop, but 30 seems kind of out of reach. Plus, we didn't think he was going to play that game. Again, the role that you accept, he's changing his own role in his mind. He needs to be a little bit more of a producer in his mind than be a contact and speed guy.
Yep, 100%. I think you're seeing it like across the board. The ground ball rate's down like 9%. He's not just trying to be a speed guy anymore. He's trying to be a power and speed guy, with speed being the lesser of the two.
All right. So we have 900, almost 950 at bats from Bryce Terang at really below average exit velocities. And now we have 95 at bats at really good exit velocities. What do we do with this? How do we balance?
Yeah, what's up with this here?
Yeah, exactly.
This, again, you talk about things that I never thought I'd see. Bryce Terang all of a sudden turning into a possible power guy is certainly on the list. And let's pump the brakes here, because he is not going to suddenly be a big power guy. That is not, it's not where we're at. His max exit velocities, even this season, hitting the ball harder, still only 109.8, below average. Hard hit rate's great, 49.5%. Hits a lot of line drives. He did last year too. Still doesn't hit the ball in the air a lot. In fact, that's down 5%. He's only at about 21% fly balls. Hardly ever pulls the ball. A lot of bunt for hits. He's got 14% infield hits already. So, Bryce Terang, you're not going to wake up and see Bryce Terang hitting 25 homers. However, he's showing a lot more power than I ever thought we would see from him. He could be a 15 homer guy. And if he's a 1550 guy with an average that, he's hitting 337, that's certainly not going to last. But could he hit 280 to 290 with his contact rates? I think it's possible. So if you've got a 280, 1550 guy, and he's batting more towards the top of the order this year against right-handed pitching, could easily score 100 runs. I mean, all of a sudden, you've got a player that's not just a steals guy. There's production here. I'm liking what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and a lot of times we kind of shun guys who are speed only. So if he can show any kind of pop and any kind of production, and if he can hit well enough, if he gets that batting average up so he can get enough at bats, and he get plenty of at bats in his first 2 seasons with Milwaukee, gets enough at bats, hits that well, has just a little bit of pop, then the counting numbers come up as well. He did score 72 runs last year, but he could get 70 on top of that 1550 or 1540. That's it's a pretty good stat
He scored
line.
70 runs batting ninth most of the time.
Yeah.
So he's not going to be hitting ninth this year, and he's getting on base better. Contact rates are still excellent, but he clearly is swinging a little bit harder, and he's not chasing it even as much as he did last year, which was a below average chase rate. Now he's out around 23%. Contact rates in the mid 80s still. I really like what I'm seeing from Terang, and I find myself kind of like stumbling into these guys this year in tout, where I didn't love getting Maikel Garcia this year. I didn't love getting Bryce Terang.
Yeah.
And I didn't love getting Corbin Carroll. And all these guys are on my team. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is great. How am I 2-4 right now?
At a certain point, you kind of have to in certain leagues when you're just digging around to fill holes in your lineup, and you find these guys and you get more willing to just grab a guy because he's hot. Right. All right. Let's see how this plays out. Let's have this play out on my roster.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I want to bet on underlying skills when I get to a certain point. When I punted third base for so long in the auction, and I look down there and I'm like, there's 2 players left that I could even stomach having on my team, and they're Maikel Garcia and Joey Ortiz, and they both ended up on my team. One of them is playing well, and the other one is Joey Ortiz.
Yeah, the Joey Ortiz thing. I know how that goes.
Yeah, I still like the skill set, but there's zip power there, and he's adjusting to playing shortstop instead of third. So, you got defensive issues going through his mind as well. Just not a great. I may cut him in the next week or two. I put in some bids this week, but we're kind of like, maybe I can sneak this guy through and I'll drop Joey Ortiz if I do.
Yep.
But that may become more of a thing in the next week or two.
My first impulse was to look at Terang and look at that he came up and played a role his first 2 years, and it was a contact speed guy. And now maybe he's starting to expand that role a little bit. But I was looking through the minor leagues, and I just don't see any evidence. We have to rethink his power, but there's no evidence for a reason to rethink this power. This might be a third-party type of situation where some swing mechanics get involved and it added, because I don't think, if I'm looking at the scouting scores on Fangraphs, nobody saw this coming, even this coming. Nobody.
Oh, no. But one thing you and I talk about a lot, though, is the physical maturity that occurs somewhere 24 to 26 years of age. Mm-hmm. And Terang is 25 this year. It's possible, Fangraphs does not update their height and weight all that frequently. And I didn't go in to look to see if it's changed on the team page.
No,
I haven't seen. You don't see a lot of Brewer games in the Northeast. So I really haven't seen him this year, but it's possible that he's just bigger.
And there's some growth there. He's 5'11", he's listed at 5'11", 190, which is
it's not tiny.
It's not tiny. But there's room for growth too. I mean, let's call him 6 and put him at 195 or 197, especially if it's good conditioned growth. Then that's a guy who ought to be able to hit the ball fairly hard,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
He's got enough physical capability to have some power.
I think we can get him to 45 raw, 50 raw on the scouting scale, and his contact ability is good enough that we could probably have 50 game power. So average power with his speed and his ability to make contact is fantastic.
Now you're talking high teens in homers as opposed to 15, and you're talking 40 stolen bases.
Exactly. That's a pretty valuable player.
Yeah, buy in, buy now, right?
Yeah, I'm on board. I am.
I'm loving this list because so many guys that are below the radar. Gavin Sheets is another one of these.
Gavin, I wrote him up the other night when I did my column, and I was like, really, am I writing Gavin Sheets? I mean, he was in White Sox purgatory for a couple of years, and this guy he's nothing. And then I took a look, and all right, without looking, what do you think Gavin Sheets is, height and weight?
I don't know. I was going to say right about the same, 5'11", 6, 190.
6'3", 235. This dude is a big man, okay?
Yeah.
And he has perpetually hit the ball like he's 5'10", 175. So, what is going on here? He's a big dude. And all of a sudden, he's perpetually had below average exit velocities with average to slightly above average maximum exit velocities. The max exit velo hasn't changed this year, but the average is up to almost 93. The hard hit rate's 59%. The best thing here is the ground ball rate. He's been a high ground ball rate guy, but it's been coming down over the years, every single year. Huge drop so far this year, 20.5% ground ball rate. All of that just about is going into line drives, a 36.7% line drive rate. He's always been a pretty good contact guy. The chase rate's down to about average this year. Contact rates are typically around 80, which is very good. So he makes contact. He clearly has average-ish raw power. And the best thing here, from my perspective, is that he's in a decent offense and they're protecting him from left-handed pitching. He is one of these lefties that does not hit lefties well. Big guy, a lot of strike zone, the drill.
Yep.
But the Padres, instead of keeping him down 7th, 8th in the order against right-handed pitching, which is, I think he was there with the White Sox half the time, they're batting him up towards the top of the order. He's in there with Tatis, Machado, Xander. He's the lefty that's breaking them up right now. That means he's getting a lot of pitches to hit because, frankly, if you're a pitcher, do you want to face Fernando Tatis? Do you want to face Manny Machado? Or do you want to face Gavin Sheets?
Right.
The answer is pretty obvious, even as an opposite side hitter. So I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities, going to get a lot of pitches to hit. He has contact ability. He has average power. He's a guy in deeper leagues that would definitely be looking to add. I just don't think his skill set was maximized in Chicago, just like pretty much everybody, because that organization is a cesspool at this point.
Yep.
Sheets, I think in San Diego, he's probably only going to get 400 to 450 at bats because he is being strictly platooned. But there is some potential here, especially in daily lineup change leagues.
All right, I try to see where the deficit is, especially in quality of contact. And what we've seen to this point with him is that hard hit percentage hasn't been great, but in his barrel percentage has been really low, but his launch angle is enough to get that. You would think that barrel rate would be higher. So it's just been exit velocity for him. So is it just a matter of just plate approach and aggression at this point? Because it's all come together this year. He's got a launch angle. And again, the barrel rate isn't there because sometimes I think that launch angle is inflated by some infield flies. I got to look it up, but.
Well, bigger guys have a tougher time getting to the barrel. I think there's so much more strike zone and so much longer of a swing that I think, with the possible exceptions of people like Aaron Judge, who are superhuman, it's just kind of tough for them to get there as often. But when they do, I mean, he clearly has just the size alone. He's got so much torque that he will hit some homers. I could see 15 to 20 homers in a platoon role with a decent average, which, in deeper leagues, that's going to have some value.
Yeah, 14% infield fly rate so far this year. So that tracks why the barrel rate is so low.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd like to see that launch angle without the infield flies and see really where we are. So he's got some power, and his scouting grade, and again, he's unupdated, all that. His scouting grade and raw power was 70, but he hasn't got much game power. So it's in there to be tapped if they can find a way to do it. And protecting him against same side pitching might be a big help for him here.
I think so, and definitely the lineup protection, I think, is going to be a big deal for him all season long. I don't know how much raw power is there. I don't see 70, but I mean 55, maybe 60.
All right, George Springer. It's another guy who's been kind of enigmatic for a while there. He's one of these guys who had a couple good home run years and then tried to be that hitter all the time and couldn't pull it off.
Well, I think, he had the year 2021 where he basically had a different injury every 2 or 3 weeks for the entire season. It was oblique, it was quad, then it was ankle, then it was quad again, then it was ankle again, and it was just a bad year. And ever since then, he's looked like he's one step away from being out of baseball. And it's a shame because I love George Springer as a player. I really enjoyed watching him back with the Astros. And he was a Northeast kid. He went to UConn. So we've been familiar with him for a while. He's 35 now, not usually an age where you're going to see a huge resurgence from a guy that's been declining for 4 years. But all of a sudden, that exit velo has gone from 87.5 to 92. Hard hit rate's back to 50%. The ground ball rate is down a ton again, which is great to see from him. And what we've seen here is pretty clearly a more passive approach where he's really swinging a lot harder again. The swing rate's down 6.5%, which is a really significant move in being less aggressive at the plate. But the contact rate's down like 9%. So he is not getting cheated this year, we'll say. But I've been impressed with what I've seen.
So it's just a matter of being healthy or
It
healthy
looks
at 35.
it does. It looks like he's fully healthy for the first time in quite some time.
It's funny. Last year was such a brutal year. Even in looking at the quality of contact, it was such a brutal year.
It was horrible.
At a certain point, he's got 1 year left on this contract.
He has 2 years. Well, this year and next.
This year and next year.
25 apiece.
I don't know if he's getting another contract at 36 or 37.
You put up 2 good years, you might get a 1 or 2 year deal from somebody. But typically, those are the guys that they just vanish, and you're like, geez, I wonder what happened to that guy.
Yeah, but this is not a buy high. We're not putting him in the buy high category, right?
No, but if he's available in your league, I want him.
Oh, if he's available. Yeah, if he's floating around. And
I can see Springer on the wire after last year, and if people aren't paying attention that closely, I think you could see him on the wire in some leagues.
Yeah, and ride it while he's hot, and then when he's not hot, find something else, right?
He's running again. He's running more than he has in a long time, and that is a pretty good sign to me.
Right, that's back to the health theory.
Precisely, yes.
Yeah. And by the way, he's been running the last 2 or 3 years too. Kind of interesting.
Well, he has, but not. I mean, he's running even more this year.
No,
four steals through 20 games. So you multiply that by 7 or so. That's 28 attempts. He hasn't had 28 attempts ever in his career.
There's also, at a certain age, does that come to Jesus moment from a health standpoint, right?
When I feel good, I'm running.
No, but I mean, at a certain point, you're a kid, right? You're athletic, and you're a professional athlete, and you've always been healthy, or you think you're conditioned and things like that. And then you realize at a certain age, you got to take it up another gear. You got to get more serious about it.
Yeah, I mean, it could certainly be that. It could be conditioning.
And there's a lot of, again, third party. There's a lot of stuff going on there as well. Maybe he's hooked up with Tom Brady
in Toronto. Maybe.
Maybe. Toronto, Vegas, no big deal.
Yeah, sure.
Short flight. Well, yeah. Alex Guerrero could make the flight. No big deal. All right, Josh Naylor is a 5'10" guy, but he's not 190 pounds. He's 235 pounds. He's got some power, and it's showing up a little bit more this year. After a 31 homer year, is he's just assuming the role and just say, I've got power. I'm going to play like a power production guy.
Maybe. I am not a huge Josh Naylor fan. The max exit velos are just kind of average. He's been average in terms of average exit velos as well, all through his career until all of a sudden now we're at 92. Hard hit rates up to 45.7. But when you look at the StatCast expected data, he's over the batting average by like 45 points. He's over the slugging by 55 points. Mm-hmm. He's been a little bit lucky. The ground ball rate is really high. I think, the best thing I see about him is that he's really stopped being quite so aggressive, which he has natural contact ability, and he has at least average power, probably we'll say average plus. And the fact that he's taken his swing rates from 56 to 50 to 45 so far this year means that I think there's been a conscious effort for him to just not, when you can hit the ball, when you can make contact very well, the tendency for a lot of players is to swing at everything because you can hit it. But once you start realizing and maturing as a player, it takes some guys longer than others. With Naylor, it seems to have taken him about 2,000 plate appearances to figure out, maybe I should wait for a pitch that I can actually do something with,
Right.
not just hit. And I think we've seen that the last couple seasons. He's been a little lucky this year, but I think you can get close to last year's performance with a helping batting average out of him, which is a really good player.
You start chasing and you get that contact rate, non-optimal contact rate, and that drags everything down. It skews everything down. So maybe there's a little bit more pop in there than we've seen because he's zoning up a little bit more.
I think so. I think he really was trying to go for power last year. That's why you saw the batting average drop, but the home runs jumped up to 30. He knew he was in a contract year. So I think you'll see maybe maybe fewer home runs this year, maybe 25 to 30 instead of the 31, but a much more optimal contact, more line drives, more ground balls too, because he's not trying to hit everything out of the park. But I think you'll see an average. He is a good contact hitter. I think you'll see an average up in the 280 range, maybe.
New team, new coaching, new development approaches and things like that. You got to pay attention to some changes when that happens
And a better offense too.
And a better offense, right? So he's got a little bit more around him. But
Yeah.
So all those things can contribute to this. And he's obviously got some power, and maybe he's just tapping into it better. But you're right. The big news is you got to kind of overlook that a little bit, because the big news is his plate approach is much improved.
It is very much so. And he already has over 80 plate appearances. So we're getting pretty close to that is clearly a thing. And when you piggyback it onto last year's drop by about 6% in swing rate, you can see that it's a conscious effort on his part to be a little more discerning at the plate. I think you'll start to see the rewards again in batting average this year.
Yeah, especially when the launch angle comes up, you get a little bit more fly balls in there too. And then the powers, he's going to start to approach that 30 homer power we think he's capable of.
Yeah, I think so. He'll approach it, but I think it's more important for him to be 280, 300 hitter with 25 to 30 home runs than a 250 hitter with 30 to 35 home runs.
All right. I love talking Yankees hitters with you. Let's talk about Anthony Volpe.
Yeah,
And we talked about him a lot in the preseason.
Yankee fans are down on Volpe, pretty much across the board. I see incremental gains being made here. This is still a very young player. He's 24 years old, transforming from he's the kid and everybody is kind of babying him and helping him along to he's getting to be one of the veterans now as you bring guys like Rice and Dominguez into the fold. And I think he's embracing that. He's a great defensive shortstop. You're seeing a little more of a discerning approach at the plate. Chase rate's down 8% so far this year. Swing is down 3.5%. These are things that I think speak to an actual conscious effort to be a little more patient when I see him. And in that Yankee lineup, he is going to see a lot of pitches to hit. The contact ability is probably just average. And the power also, it might be average plus, maybe. I mean, he hit his hardest ball of his career already this year, 110.5, which is kind of average, maybe a smidge above. Hard hit rate's back above 40% this year. Exit velocity on average is 90.5, up 3 miles an hour from last year so far. The real kicker here, and the reason the batting average is so low, is that he's just not hitting line drives. A 6% line drive rate is unheard of.
Especially the role he's trying to assume. That's what he should be trying to hit, is line drives.
Well, when you look at his minor league time, he hit a lot of fly balls. And a lot of pull too. And he came up to the majors and did not do that. So I think there's a happy medium in there between his 50% fly ball rates that he put up in the minors and the last couple of years where he was 37 and 29, where it looked like he was really trying to make contact. This year, it's a little less so. He's a little more of, I'm going to try to hit the ball hard instead of just trying to slap it somewhere. But it's not as much as his minor league time. So I think he's maturing as a hitter.
I think he's fishtailing around that, though, because last year the swing strike rate was sub 10. His contact rate was close to 80. That's perfectly acceptable. He chased a lot, right? And that was probably the emphasis here in this season is don't chase, zone up a little bit more. But it's almost brought him a little bit too cautious. So you're right. He's got to find the happy medium. Yeah,
he's definitely not a fully formed player yet. But I like the kid. I think he's going to be a good shortstop. I think he's going to be, we'll say, middle infield worthy in 12-team mixed leagues. The speed alone helps that, although, he hasn't run a ton so far this year. He's 3 out of 5 in steals. You multiply that out, he's probably looking at a 2020 season again, which he was not able to get to last year. And I think the average will creep up. He's a decent contact hitter, and that line drive rate's going to climb. Plus, being a little more patient at the plate, he's actually putting a walk rate up of 12% so far this year. I think that he can push his OBP up into the 330, 340 range, average up into the kind of major league median range in the 240s. I think we'll be okay. I think he's going to be a decent player.
He's got to go 2020 in that position to justify, to get a price, because that position 2020 is good, but you're hoping for a better player at that point at shortstop. Plus, he's got to do better in the counting stats. He did score 90 runs last year, and hopefully he can get up there again, but he's got to give you 70, 90, or he's got to give you 80, 90 again to compete at that position.
Well, he's on pace for like 75 runs and 90 RBIs right now. That would be perfectly acceptable to me if I had him. But last year was 90-60. You want more ribbies from a guy that's not giving you a great batting average.
Yeah, and he's going to be suppressed, I think, in the Yankees lineup, because I think his role, they're not going to ask him for power. They want him to do exactly what he's doing, just do it a little bit better.
Yeah, I think they want him to just be kind of average offensively, and I think that he can handle that.
Yeah, and play shortstop, which he does very well.
He does very well.
Yeah, that'd be good for that team.
And he seems like such a good kid, too. I say kid, he's 24, but my son's older than him, so he's a kid.
I know, right? It's kind of the cutoff, isn't it?
I know, it really is.
No, they're all kids.
Well, George Springer might not be a kid.
George Springer's not a kid. Yeah, that's fair enough.
Patrick Corbin's not a kid.
Brian Reynolds.
He's around here.
Brian Reynolds, we always seem to expect a little bit more than what we get out of him.
I actually think that he's one of two things. Brian Reynolds is 30 years old. I think he's one of two things here. I think he is either in decline, or more likely, I think he's just damn tired of the Pirates.
It could be.
And you can forgive people. You probably get numb to the beauty of coming to that stadium for 81 games a year. I actually love that park. It is probably my favorite ballpark.
Nice.
But Reynolds, you've gone from 90 to 92.5 on exit velocity this year, which is great. Not being rewarded for it. The expected slugging is 120 points above what he's put up so far, which is a 400 slugging. But the ground ball rate keeps going up. The swing strike rate keeps going up. And I just sense like kind of malaise there. There's nothing I can point my finger at, but it just seems like this is a dude, like if he gets traded at the deadline and goes to like a good offense, I could see him just breaking out for 2 months and already being like, oh, look, the Pirates got screwed again.
I'm not suggesting this, and he's not a fit, but Brian Reynolds with the Dodgers right now.
Oh my goodness.
Can you imagine?
Brian Reynolds with the Dodgers, Brian Reynolds with the Padres, Brian Reynolds with the Royals.
I think he hit it exactly on the head. I think it's a malaise of some kind, and I think you just get sick of playing for a Pittsburgh organization that's just not good.
They're just spinning their wheels. I mean, they have so much potential on that team. They got like a couple young catchers that I like. Henry Davis, I think he could be good. Brian Hayes just kills me. Like that guy has skills, but I really feel like we're already into the back problems have derailed any chance he has at being a good player. O'Neal Cruz, super exciting guy. The pitching, Skeens, you got Bubba Chandler's hanging around there. There's a lot of interesting pieces that the Pirates have. But Reynolds is signed through 2030. What was he thinking?
Well, make the money.
Thinking that all these kids were going to be good, and then all of a sudden they were going to be good. But I don't know.
You're right. It looks like a guy who's just showing up for work.
He's punching a clock, man. It's what I hate putting this on because I don't know. I know
we're speculating to a large degree, but when you said it, it's like that's exactly what it looks like. It's exactly what
it feels like to me. He just looks like a guy that's just he's 9 to 5 in it.
30 years old and putting up with I don't know if you've watched it on Netflix. Have you watched any of the Clubhouse, the documentary on the Red Sox?
No.
Oh, it's on Netflix. It's an 8-episode. They followed the Red Sox around last year. It's a lot of access. You get a lot of inside look to these players. And again, the Red Sox have their cast of characters, Tristan Casas and Duran and Brian Bayo. But what I've pulled from it, and this is going to make me sound like a boomer, which I am.
I'm a borderline boomer, so yeah.
Kids at this age, I don't know if it's generational or if it's the Red Sox in particular just have harvested these types of personalities, but there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of show going on with these kids and their personalities at this point. And a 30-year-old Brian Reynolds who's been in the league for a while and having to play in Pittsburgh for a while, putting up with the clubhouse of this generation Might be a difficult task.
Maybe. I have a tendency to, old man yelling at clouds, stuff like that. Everybody's an influencer now. I get super enthused and enchanted. I really enjoy watching guys like Vinny Pasquantino and guys like this with their Twitter stuff, because they just seem to get it.
Yeah.
Like this is all fun. We're interacting with the fans. I don't need to be anybody different than who I am. Just fans love to talk to us, so I'll talk a little. But you can go into that next step where it's like I have to create this persona, and it just gets a little much for me. I try to be a genuine person. I try to treat everybody the same way, whether I'm on Twitter or in public or doing this stuff. And I'm not sure that is I don't say it's a lost art, but it seems to have gone a little by the wayside, maybe.
And I know it's going to try it on Netflix, try the Clubhouse and see how far you can get.
I'll check it out.
I'm 3 episodes.
We just finished The Residence. We just finished it the other night. So that was excellent. So I am
3 episodes in, and I'm struggling just to get through this because it's just like, and all I do is look at Alex Cora and say, boy, you have a lot to deal with.
I mean, find me a major league manager that doesn't have a lot to deal with right now.
That's my point. That's exactly it. For a guy like Brian Reynolds, who seems like I don't know. I have no idea where he's from. I have no idea what he has personality-wise, but he seems like a Midwestern, just show up and do your job type of guy.
Well, he went to Vanderbilt, so probably a good bet that you're right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he's going to be struggling with this too, as I'm sure a guy like Alex Cora is.
I think so. I don't know. Some days I'm like, I would love to be a manager. I think that would be a blast. And then I look, and these kids are 30 years younger than me, and I think I'd just be pulling what's left of my hair out.
All right. I'm so fascinated that you came up with Rowdy Tellez.
I thought about writing you back and saying, you know what, let's just put Ben Rice on instead. But I said, oh, we'll add Ben Rice. We'll talk about Rowdy Tellez.
No, but it's how we're connected, because I saw Rowdy Tellez the other day. Of course, the Mariners are in town, and it's like I'm thinking he's still alive. That type of thing going on.
He had 1 foot out the door. The last couple of years, he's been pretty miserable. And again, this year, the underlying stuff looks miserable, but Rowdy Tellez has always had pop. And you've got the exit velocity went from 90 last year, which is frankly pretty low for him, up to 95.5 so far this year, 65% hard hit rate. And he's hitting what? Like he's hitting 149?
Yeah.
And, it's only 47 at bats. Let's not get carried away. But the line drive rate is up. Exit velocity, like we said, is up 5 miles an hour. Expected data by StatCast, 233 average, not great. 481 slugging, 250 ISOs, pretty good.
It's got a 111 BABIP.
426. Yeah.
You got to run like Rafael Devers to have a 111 BABIP.
Well, Rowdy Tellez might make Rafael Devers look fleet of foot. So
that was the subject last night. I was at the sportsbook and we were watching a game, and we saw Rafael Devers round third and head for home.
Oh no!
From second base. It's like watching him run was just hilarious. It was absolutely.
I remember watching Stanton round third in the playoffs last year. Like, no, don't send him! Don't send him!
No, he was in easy, but he was digging hard, and I bet he went into the dugout and go, "Hey, I was running fast, wasn't I?"
It looks like so much effort. It's like watching Wile E. Coyote just spinning his wheels.
And then in the middle of the game, I was sitting there and I go, I would pay good money to see Rowdy Tellez and Rafael Devers in a foot race.
Oh, I know who would win, and it's not Rowdy Tellez. Rowdy Tellez would have a tough time beating. I don't know. Pick your catcher that retired like 10 years ago.
Yeah, Carlton Fisk.
Yeah, exactly. He'd have a tough time beating Carlton Fisk in a race.
Yeah. But do we have to pay attention to him? This is exactly what Seattle is looking for. I mean, they're not getting the results stats right now, but the underlying stats tell us be patient. Something will produce at this point because they need a little pop.
They do. I think Tellez, it's a bad park fit for him.
Yeah.
Cal Raleigh can make it work with the 210 batting average and 40 homers. You could make a case for that being the ceiling here for Tellez, but I think it's more likely he hits some homers, he draws some walks. I don't think he's going to be a help in any format, really, despite the somewhat decent data we're seeing early in the season. But, in a pinch, deep league, corner infielder, injury replacement, I can see it, especially in a week where they might be facing a bunch of right-handed pitching, and especially if they're on the road.
Well, that's the key. The key is at bats at this point. If you can tell me he's going to get 500 at bats or 475 at bats, he's worthwhile.
Yeah,
I don't see a path to that.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna. But it's a neat little story, and he's hit the ball well in the early going here. So.
All right, check us out on insiderbaseball.com. There's a baseball blog, which is free to non-subscribers. If you're new to us or you're not a subscriber, there's plenty of great information on there. Writers put up samples from our emails to our subscribers every day, so you can get a lot of free information up there. Half of the weekly planner that we have getting you ready for the upcoming week is up there as well. So insiderbaseball.com, check out the baseball blog, free to non-subscribers. Find out how we help you during the season and help you win your championship, and especially if you get a multiple leagues. Then we become very economical if you get multiple leagues, right? We can help you. And by the way, you can set up all your teams from all your leagues. There is no limit on the subscription site. So go there, check out the 14-day pitching rotations, the pitching logs. Those are great, as well as a lot of great information in the way we help people win championships. Check it out. The podcast is also available wherever you get your podcasts. So go check us out there. If you missed any of the past, by all means, let us know. Skylar, good to see you. We'll talk to you next time.
Likewise, buddy. Thanks.
Yo, let's go. Hey, hey, hey. Yo. Oh, yeah.